joining us. I'm Megyn Kelly. Roseanne Barr had the hottest sitcom on television. Today, she's out of a job. Her racist tweet early Monday morning about Valerie Jarrett, an aide to former President Obama, was the end for her. ABC canceled the Roseanne reboot within hours. Her management company dropped her, and even the reruns of her original show are now being pulled. NBC's Craig Melvin has more reporting, including Roseanne Barr's all-night tweet storm. Watch. Wow. Joining me now to discuss it, NBC's Craig Melvin, Marisa Guthrie, who's the TV editor for The Hollywood Reporter, and MSNBC analyst Zerlina Maxwell. Thank you all so much for being here.
Good to see you, Melvin.
All right. So this is big. I mean, this was big. And kudos to Valerie Jarrett for handling it with class last night and saying, look, it's not about me. I do worry about people who don't have the kind of support system I have, who are the subject of these kinds of comments. She handled it well, but it is about more. So let's just start with why this tweet rose to a level that none of Roseanne's others had. Because just so you know, she has a long history of making controversial comments. In 2013, she described Susan Rice, former Obama advisor, as a big man with swinging ape testicles, let's say. She called Huma Abedin, a former Hillary Clinton aide, a Jew hater and a filthy Nazi whore. She promoted Pizzagate, the conspiracy. I mean, so Roseanne's history is pretty well documented. So let's just talk about what was it, Zerlina. Let me start with you about this particular tweet that was different.
I think it's a perfect storm of a different series of things. So I think President Trump is a factor in making race and racism something that we're all more conscious about. We're talking about it more. We've also seen an uptick, or at least more awareness about police incidents with unarmed black people. We also have seen, though, incidents where black people are just living their lives, napping, barbecuing, hanging out, and white people are calling the police on these black citizens.
There have been a slew of those examples lately. If you haven't been paying attention, it's been having like women having a barbecue innocently who got called, the police called, women coming out bringing luggage to their car who didn't make eye contact with a white woman who saw them, getting the police called on them. I mean, like, there has been a rash of incidents lately. But clearly, this was a bridge too far for ABC, Marisa. And they, you know, I believe ABC was trying in the Roseanne reboot to do something good, which is to offer programming that would resonate with middle America, with folks who did vote for Donald Trump, who feel marginalized by the offerings on TV, or just by the Hollywood and media elite in general.
Right.
I think that was the intention.
Yes, yes. And it did resonate. I mean, it had, when you add in some of the delayed viewing, those episodes had 20 million people watching them. So it did resonate, and they did try to, yes, to your point, insert good messages into the programming. There was a Muslim family that moved in the neighborhood, and at first the Connors were, you know.
Yeah, Roseanne showed her bias in the episode.
Right.
She thought that they were, you know, terrorists.
But then she got to know them as human beings, three-dimensional human beings. But the tweet was accumulation of things. This is not the first time that Roseanne's tweets, as you have read, has caused problems for
Have been
ABC.
really incendiary.
Yes.
It's not like those other ones are borderline.
Right.
But I think that they had to know that someday they would be in this situation with her. She has said she's going to quit Twitter before. She never has. She said it again yesterday. She's still on Twitter. And so her history of these comments, these offensive comments, and the fact that she is just incorrigible with Twitter, they knew, I think, that they were going to be in this situation. Maybe they didn't know they would be in it this soon.
Hope for the best.
But
hope for
I
the best,
also
I
think
guess.
that you know, we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that ABC is owned by Disney, and
Yes.
it's a
That's a
company
very good
that
point.
is very cognizant of its image, and it's, you know, certainly wants to continue to be seen as a family-friendly company. Something else that I think has gotten lost in this is that the president of ABC Entertainment is a black woman. So I think that it was a situation where the speed with which they acted, if you really look at it, I mean, her first tweet was early yesterday morning, and she was fired before 2 p.m.
Within hours.
Yeah. So
what would have happened? What would have happened with the advertisers if they hadn't fired her? Would she have had any advertisers left?
You know, I spoke to some people, some advertisers yesterday, and all of them said we didn't have time to even internally talk about this. They have not finalized deals on what would have been the new season of the ABC's programming yet. So it happened.
There would
so
have been
quickly,
enormous
but
pressure.
There would have been, yes. I'm sure in the conversations there would have been pressure from groups brought to bear.
Yeah, because they don't want to be seen as endorsing that.
Yes.
And that was the problem, is that the TV character Roseanne, you know, was not quite as bad as this, right? Like she was kind of open about biases, but not like this, not like this, not referring to an African-American woman as the product of an ape. I mean, that's what she said. And today she tried to defend herself by saying, I thought she was white and I thought she was Jewish. And, you know, she's accusing her of being the product of the Muslim Brotherhood, and allegedly she thought she was Jewish. It's like, Roseanne is spinning. And Roseanne...
She blamed Ambien, too.
Right.
And, you know, who knew that one of the side effects of Ambien was, like, racism?
Racism, yeah.
And sleepwalking.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Definitely, just go for the Tylenol PM. Yeah. But can I ask you this, because now some are defending Roseanne, not necessarily her comment, but the cancellation and the reaction are saying it's a double standard, because they point to Bill Maher, who's on HBO, who referred to Trump as the son of an orangutan, a reference to skin color. That Bill Maher, I mean, I've said this many times, he's referred to women by the C word. He's a big fan of calling women the C word. And so why is that not a bridge to, you know, it's like, where do we draw our lines?
Well, I think to Craig's point, this is the Disney company, okay? Bill Maher is on HBO. There are no advertisers on HBO.
But what are its principles?
Well, that's a question for them.
I would also add, though, that there's a historical context that's missing in the Bill Maher example. There isn't a history of white men being compared to monkeys and apes, or being deemed as less than because of the size and width of their skulls. And that's something that's true about African Americans in this country. So I think that with the Bill Maher example, certainly you can argue that he has said things that are similarly offensive, but there is not that same historical context in that example.
I think that, and I mean, Bill Maher making fun of Trump's skin color could easily have chosen, like, Cheetos. That's been a thing, doesn't make it better, but it wasn't necessarily a race reference.
Just talk about what Trump says and does, and not about what he looks like.
Yeah, exactly. He gives you plenty of fodder if you want to criticize him. But I will say that Bill Maher, I mean, I don't understand how we keep holding up. I mean, some people just, they cover him so regularly. And it's like, people have asked me about comments he's made about me. I said, you want to ask me to respond to somebody who said anything about me? Go find someone who doesn't refer to women as the C word, and then we'll talk. But I don't respond to Bill Maher. And I have a real problem with the huge platform that he has. Now some, though, are trying to make this about Trump. Right? And it's not completely disconnected because her character loved Trump. She loves Trump. Trump loves her. But I'll give it to you this way. The New York Times' Roxane Gay wrote as follows. The problem is, this is about Roseanne, that having a major character on a prominent TV show as a Trump supporter normalizes racism, misogyny, and xenophobia. Is that fair? Yeah. Well, maybe they'll clap for that. Maybe they won't. Right? I mean, you tell me whether you believe, should there not be a major character on television that's a prominent Trump supporter?
Sure, but they don't have to be racist. I mean, Trump supporters themselves say, we're not racist. Not all Trump supporters are racist. So if that's true, then certainly you can depict a Trump supporter on television without having them be racist. But I would also argue that if you voted for Donald Trump, you tolerated a certain level of racism. That's just a fact. And so I think that we have to be honest about how we're looking at these situations and really confront the history in this country. It's the original sin. And so
that's the thing,
we had slavery in this country, and it's important for us to acknowledge that affects us today and how we view race.
I feel like, so that you just put your finger on it, because there's no question that some of what Trump has said has, at a minimum, racial undertones, sexist undertones, xenophobic undertones, right? If you want to give him the benefit of the doubt, we'll go with undertones. But that doesn't mean that all of his supporters are racists and sexists and xenophobes, but it does show that that wasn't their number one voting issue. You know what I mean? That I think a lot of people in Middle America hated some of his comments and some of his tweets and his rhetoric, but really thought he would be the guy who would help them with their pocketbook or with their kids or with their health care or what have you. And my takeaway in 2016, one of them was, it's unfortunate they had to make that choice. It's unfortunate they had to take that choice. Final word. Do you think this means anything for the future of programming? Will ABC or other channels try to do more to reach out to Middle America with a less controversial figure or character?
I think they will. I mean, I think one thing that ABC has found is that it's profitable. I mean, again, you look at the ratings for Roseanne in the first season, we're talking 18 million people on average every week. So, yeah, and just as you said, I mean, there is a large swath of this country that continues to feel like the folks in New York and D.C. and Chicago and L.A. really don't care about them, really don't know them, really don't understand them. So there's a market for it. But I also think that these networks and cable outfits will be very, very careful. But as you indicated, I mean, it's hard to imagine that no one saw this coming. Yeah. Looking at some of the things that she has tweeted in the past, things that she said in the past as well. And don't forget the Star-Spangled Banner. Yeah, exactly. That was back in 2000? Was that 2000? I was before that. I think it was in the 90s. It was a long time ago. Anyway, you guys, thank you so much for a thoughtful discussion. Great to have you all. We'll be right back.
Hello, Today fans. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking that button down there and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives.